Hey guys, it's Katie and I'm here today to do my latest wrap up. So once again, I read like 6 things, I don't even know, but I read a lot of things recently because I had spring break last week and I was able to squeeze a few things in here and there. And also, I've been doing a new kind of thing where I read a fantasy book, but I'm also reading a book of another genre at the same time, and they're just kind of being read interchangeably because, and this might shock some of you guys, I was getting a little bit bored with the fantasy that I've been reading lately, and it's not that I'm not enjoying it, it's just that I haven't necessarily been in the mood to read, but like, I have been at the same time. I don't know. The last month and a half has just been a really big struggle in terms of my reading adventures and whatnot. But I did read some really interesting books, and so I'm going to talk to you guys about them, all the books that I've read since we last talked. So the first book that I read was Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funke, and I really enjoyed it. I participated in middle grade March, as some of you guys might know, and that book falls into the middle grade category. It's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Basically what it's about is it's about a dragon, a brownie, and a young boy who kind of go on a journey to find a better home for the dragons, because humans are taking over where they live right now, and humans are just seen as really bad people, bad creatures, whatever, in that part of the world. So they end up going on all these crazy chaotic adventures in order to find this really well hidden, obscure kind of dragon paradise place, and in order for them to kind of have a safe place to live. And there are a lot of crazy things that happen along the way of them finding this dragon haven, I'll call it. Pun. But it was really, 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 really lovely. I wasn't so sure I was enjoying it at first, but then as I got into the book more, I found that I really, really enjoyed it. So the writing was really quite simplistic. I mean, you guys know I don't tend to focus on the writing unless it's, really bad or really, really good. It just doesn't stand out to me one way or another. The world building was very well done. It took a very unique twist on the typical quest adventure kind of a situation book thing. I just really enjoyed it. It was something really refreshing on an old idea, and I just really liked what they did with it. And not only was the world building like, your typical, Western adventure, it also incorporated some Eastern dragon lore in it as well, and I just really, really liked getting to see that kind of multicultural blend. I just thought it was so well done and just great. Honestly, best part of the book was the world building. It was so strong and so wonderful. The plot was also kind of interesting because it just kept taking all of these intricate twists and turns and things. I mean, is it really predictable? Yeah. Is it, pretty tropey at times? Yeah. But at the same time, as I said, because the author put all of these unique twists on an already, well-versed kind of a story, it still really held my interest to the point where, I was thinking about it periodically throughout the day, not like to the point where I was obsessed with it, but to the point of, being interested enough that I wanted to go back into the book. And so I just really enjoyed that. And then as for the characters, I liked most of the characters, but there were one or two that I found really irritating. Sadly, one of the irritating characters was one of the main characters, and her name is Sorrel. She's a brownie, and she is literally the most grumpy, downer, untrusting character, and I just found her to be incredibly frustrating 95% of the time, but she did add a lot to the story as well. So I mean, I can't like totally hate her or anything, but she wasn't my favorite. I wish we got to know the dragons more. I mean, we got to, deal with them a lot because, Fire Drake, the dragon, that's his name, or I should say the main dragon, because we encounter others as the book goes on. But I feel like we didn't get to know him. We just kind of knew little superficial things, but not anything very in-depth. I really liked Ben, who was our human character, and then I loved Twigleg. Twigleg was the best character, honestly, and he's also morally gray, so now you know why I liked him. But no, just the characters, as I said, were really well written, and I really liked most of them. And we met a lot of other characters as the book went on and stuff, and I really just enjoyed getting to see them as well. Then the next book I read was Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. And this is a book that is well beloved by BookTube. Everyone and their mother has either read this book or is planning on reading this book. So I feel like I don't need to go into too much depth as to what it's about. But basically it follows our main character of Morgan Crow, who is a cursed child because she was born on Eventide. And these cursed children, once they reach their 11th birthday, are sent to die. On Morgan's 11th birthday, instead of, dying, she gets whisked off to this magical place called Nevermore by a wonderful little fellow called Jupiter North. And basically what she does is, in order to gain entry into this really prestigious society, she has to go through all of these different trials. And that's generally the gist of the book. And I go into more depth on my thoughts on this book in the review that I did, and I'll link that up above in the cards for you guys so you can hear a little bit more about my thoughts. But I didn't love this book as much as everyone else seemed to. It was really good, and it had a lot of really great aspects to it, but there were definitely things that I had major issues with. The writing, as I said, once again, fine, not my favorite, not my least favorite thing, was just, there. I'm consuming things, it's fine. The characters, most of them kind of fell flat to me. The one that I loved the most, honestly, was Jupiter, and sadly we didn't get to see a ton of him. I just didn't have that deep of a connection with Morgan, which is, maybe not the best thing because she is our protagonist. And then just, I don't know, the characters just felt very superficial in a lot of ways, but I also did really like the characterization of the Wondersmith, who was kind of like our big bad, if you will. But, so I really liked Jupiter and his characterizations the most. As I said, everyone else was a little bit irritating. But I don't know, it just didn't flow as well as I would have liked it to. The plot at points was very, very original and very interesting, but it also did things like, oh, this thing's important, but I'll explain it to you later. And I hated that because it's like, you're talking about the thing now. Tell me about it now. Don't tell me you're going to tell me about it later, expecting me to actually care later, it's one of the things that irritates me the most in books when it pops up. And I mean, this is just any book. This is not just this one, but like, I don't like that at all. Just at all. And there were a lot of like convenient plot devices that were used. It's like, there was at this one point where Morgan was going to potentially have to leave Nevermore. But all of a sudden this thing happens and she can just magically stay. And I'm like, that's convenient. I mean, it gets explained. It's one of the things that, gets explained later as to why it just magically happened the way it did. But it also is just, I don't know, weird. It's complicated. Certain aspects of the plot I really didn't like, but I loved the trials. They were so well written and it was very engaging. But then like the quote, like, I don't want to call them filler chapters because they're really not, but like the chapters that were kind of like the between things, the between the trials kind of a thing, they just, I don't know, I found myself drifting a little bit, and I shouldn't have been drifting. But I mean, I also can't help but wonder if the author deliberately wrote it that way because it's a whimsical, kind of chaotic, crazy world. I don't know. But then talking a little bit about the world building, that was honestly its strong suit. I really liked the world building of this book. And I'm interested to see how book 2 expands on the characters, the world building, and just kind of the things that we learned in the first book. And I mean, so as I said, while I didn't love it as much as everyone else, I didn't like hate it either. I was just kind of more on the upper end of middle of the road. And then the third book I read as kind of an interlude was Bilbo's Last Song by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is a really super short, kind of like illustrated poem, if you kind of want to call it that. If you guys know from The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, Bilbo likes to write things, songs, poetry, stories. He's just all about that life. And this short story thing kind of takes place right before Bilbo and Frodo leave to go to the Undying Lands at the end of The Return of the King. And it's just kind of reminiscent, and it's really lovely because it's illustrated, but I didn't know it was illustrated. Yeah, lack of oversight on my point, but so that was irritating because I actually have it on my Kindle, and if you don't know, Kindle pictures are always in black and white. And that's a problem because they're like, oh, if you see this colored piece of clothing, and I'm like, this is not working for me because I don't see the colored things, but I'm gonna guess based on the placement of the name that you're referring to under the caption of this thing that you mean this figure. So I mean, that was a little bit irritating to me, but I really liked the art style, the little that I could see, because some of them were like tiny pictures, and I was like, I am seeing this, but not as clearly as I want to. It's fine. And the bigger ones were obviously a lot more enjoyable, and the poem was lovely as always. And then at the end of the poem slash short story thing had a lot of notes at the back mostly about the illustrations, but also in some fashion about the actual work itself. And I really enjoyed getting to experience that. And if I can manage, one day I might get it in an actual physical copy so I can enjoy it the way it was supposed to be enjoyed. But I definitely liked it despite, my own oversight as not knowing that it was going to have illustrations. Good job, Katie. It's fine. And then the next book that I read and finished was The Gateway by, I don't remember the author, so I'm just gonna, always put a picture thing in here. But this was you could call it a novella. It's about, I guess it's a prequel to this overarching series, Lost Relics or something, I don't even know. But it was a really interesting story about this young boy named James Thomas, I'm pretty sure that's what his name was, who is a farmer, and he's just really underappreciated by his family. He always has these unique dreams, and his parents and sister, I think, just don't understand him. They think he's kind of insane and loony. And then one day he stumbles across this, I guess you could call her an elf-like creature in the forest, and she's injured. And she realizes that he's the one that she was looking for because he, explains that, oh, I've had dreams about you, like people like you and things along those lines. And she whisks him through this thing called the gateway, which leads into these other realms and these other worlds. I think there are, what, 3 other worlds? It's complicated to explain it, but at the same time, not. Basically, the place where he was living was like a type of England place, but it's called like Terrain or something like that. I forget my whole life. Terrain, I think. And he goes into these other realms. One's supposed to be based on France, one's supposed to be based on, I think, Germany, and one's supposed to be based on, what is it, the Netherlands or something? I don't even know. But normally people from Terrain are not able to see or even know of the existence of those other worlds. And we encounter Merlin, who's not quite like the Merlin that we know, but also very, very similar to the Merlin that we know. And he's kind of creating these relics that are based in his power, and they're kind of meant to be used as guards. It's, as I said, it's very complicated, because when James goes there, he kind of gets assigned to work on this project thing that is really going towards trying to better society and kind of like be a peace kind of thing, but it's really not. It's, the people are not happy, they're really angry, there's a lot of kind of unrest. So despite them having this project and, saying that it's one thing, it's actually another thing. So ultimately what James proposes is that they kind of use these relics, who literally no one knows about except for him and Merlin, as to kind of like create a peace and allow people to live in their own separate sovereigns, and have this relic kind of keep the peace between the different worlds. As I said, it's very, very complicated. And I don't know if I'm going to continue on with the actual series or not. But at the same time, I'm very intrigued to know more. But the writing was like not my favorite thing. It just felt very choppy. The plot was really intriguing, but also at points I felt like it wasn't executed very well. The characters were definitely the strong point, as was the world building. I kind of explained to you guys the world building a little bit. And as I said, the characters were unique. She was able to represent what she wanted to in a short, work like this. And I thought she did a really good job of that. But as I said, at parts, it was very jarring and kind of annoying to read. I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was just, I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way. But I might be intrigued enough to continue on. I'll let you know more about that maybe later as time goes on. And then the next book I read was The Summer of Katya by Trevanyan. I think that's how you say his name. It's not how I've been saying it. But it's hard to break out of it, you know what I mean? This book is a psychological thriller that follows this summer of this doctor named Dr. Jean-Marc Montgin. Yeah, that's a mouthful, I know, I'm sorry. And basically, he's a Basque man, but he's living in the French countryside, kind of, I don't even know, it's, I think, southern France somewhere. And he's working at a clinic with this other doctor, but he's kind of irrelevant for this point. And Jean-Marc ends up meeting this family. He meets Katya, her name is Katya Treville, and she has a brother, Paul, and her father. And they're all, living out in this lovely mansion due to health reasons. And Katya enlists Jean-Marc's help because her brother injured himself by falling off of his bike and breaking his clavicle. So he ends up going up to this house and, checking out the brother and whatever. But he's also incredibly enthralled by Katya. And what happens from that point on is just this kind of, it just details this entire summer and Jean-Marc's interactions with each of these family members and kind of finding out a deeper mystery behind kind of why they're there and why they're getting ready to leave again. And as I said, it's a psychological thriller, so I can't really say much more than that. But I will say that the ending is absolutely just, it ruined the book. Like, it was on its way to being one of the best books I read this year, and then the ending just destroyed that. Like, I was so mad at the ending. Now, just to kind of talk a little bit about this book, it's kind of going to be hard to do my normal breakdown for this, but I'm probably just going to cut out the world building because it takes place in an actual real place. You know what I mean? Okay, great. The characters were definitely the strong point of this book. It was just a very, very character-centric book. There really was no plot, or very little of a plot. I mean, the psychological thriller aspects of it, like, kind of pop up, like, after the halfway point, and that's kind of where we start to learn a little bit more backstory. So, I mean, everything up to that point, really, there was no plot. It was just, Jean-Marc going to their house and having conversations with people about random things. It's really good when you read it, and it doesn't sound like anything happens when I'm talking about it, but a lot happens because every single one of those conversations has some significance and just kind of adds to the aspect of being, a really important part of the book, if you know what I mean. And the writing was actually quite well done. I really enjoy this. This is one of those books where the writing is kind of very important. So I really enjoyed that. And as I said, I hated the ending. Like, everything about it was so interesting and so well done. And then the ending happened and I just got pissed off. So, I mean, what you gonna do? But overall, I ended up really enjoying it, and a large part of the reason I ended up picking it up in the first place is because my parents named me after Katya. I mean, not necessarily the, actual character, but that's the first time they saw the name, and then there was just a lot of other factors. They kept seeing it, and they really, really liked it. So ultimately, that's what they ended up naming me. And I mean, while it's not what I go by on a regular basis, it was interesting to finally see what sparked it all. So as you guys know, I film on my phone. My phone was literally about to die, so I moved over here a little bit. And then the last book that I read was The Land of Silver Apples by Nancy Farmer. And that's the second book in the Sea of Trolls trilogy. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit, actually. It's so nice being back in that world. And while I'm not by any means enjoying it as much as I did the first one was so good. I'm still really, really enjoying book 2. Like, it's really good. Okay, guys, like, the world building is stunning, like, still. And just the fact that she's still using the language and all of these aspects from mythology and all of these kind of just historically accurate kind of situations, like the tension between paganism and Christianity. It's just right on the cusp of that kind of situation. The characterization of certain characters changed a little bit in this book, and I don't like the changes exactly. They're not bad. She's just growing them in a way that I didn't expect and taking them in a direction that I was not expecting them to go in. So the first part of the book, the first quarter, was extremely irritating to me because just some of the characters that I remember from the first one were written very differently in a not great way. Don't get me wrong, it all had a point and a purpose. It just took a little bit of time for us to get there. And once you find out kind of what that purpose was, it all makes sense. And yeah, it all makes sense, and I actually like it now. But at first I was like, what are you doing? And then the writing, as always, is just kind of like, there. The world building, though, is, as I said, it's definitely its strong point. The Norse-based fantasy, and as I said, it takes place kind of right after the shift from paganism to Christianity. One of our main characters is a Viking. Another one of our main characters is just a Northman who lives in a small village. And then we have different priests, mythological creatures like hobgoblins and elves, and the Lady of the Lake pops up. I mean, it's full of lovely creatures and legends, and then the language that's interspersed throughout is just, it's so good from that respect. Like, that is 125% where these books shine, through the world building and through certain aspects of the plot, and just how much this author has researched in order to kind of put everything together. Then, as I said, the characters, irritating, whatever. And the plot is also really interesting, but also kind of not, I don't know how to describe it. But I should probably tell you a little bit about what this book is about. So this book once again follows our main character of Jack. And Jack is still participating in his bard training. He's, better than he was, and he has a little bit more control over his life. But he's definitely still learning. I mean, he's a youngin'. And then once again, his sister Lucy gets kidnapped in some form or another, and Jack has to go save her. As per usual, Lucy is literally the most irritating character in these books. I cannot stand her as a character. She's the epitome of a spoiled brat, and but luckily enough, we don't have to see too much of her. But she's like especially bad at the beginning of this book, which is one of the reasons that I just didn't like the beginning, was because of Lucy and Jack and Lucy's father. Like, he's frustrating too. I love Jack's mother. She's lovely. But anyway, then once again, we also get to meet up with Thorgil, who is a Viking-like character. She's a shield maiden, and she's just as badass as she was in the first book. I really enjoy her, but we also get to see a bit of a different side of her in this book that I really appreciated, and just kind of getting to see her and Jack's friendship strengthen as the book goes on. And then we get to introduce to some other new characters like Pega, who is a former slave, and Brutus, who is a slave guy. And then we get to meet several of the creatures that we hadn't met in the first book. And so I really enjoyed getting to see all of this journey. I just really enjoyed taking this journey with all of them once again. And I'm definitely looking forward to the third and final book whenever I get to it, because who knows when that'll be, because I don't even own it yet, so I need to get that. But anyway, those are all the books I've read lately, and I'm trying to reach my Goodreads goal before the bar. So before I have to go on hiatus, I'm trying to reach my Goodreads goal of 30 books. I'm close. And I think if I continue on the track that I've been on lately, where I read, you know, one fantasy and then one other book in some other genre, that I'm going to make it work. But also, I am literally going to be doing Pride Month in April because a lot of really great LGBT plus books on my TBR for this year, and I just figured, hey, why not? I might as well just squeeze them all into April. So I've got like 5 books, I think. One that's coming out in April that I'm so excited for. You'll hear about it in my last wrap-up that I do, because the next wrap-up that I do will probably be the last one, and that one's going to probably encompass a lot more books, because it'll be the last one I do before hiatus time. But I'm super excited for the things that I've got planned to read before I leave for a while. It's time to wrap this wrap-up up because I've got other things I need to do. But yeah, those are all the books I've read lately, and you kind of got a general idea of where my reading is going over the next month-ish. But yeah, if you guys ever read any of these books or are planning on reading these books, please feel free to come talk to me about them either here or on Twitter. Feel free to DM me if you want to talk spoilers. But other than that, you guys know the drill. And as always, I have my social media links down below. I have a Twitter, which is @ASeaofTomes, which is the same as my handle over here. And I also have a Goodreads, which is also linked down below. And you can come follow me over there and check out what I've been reading and see how I'm generally doing with my progress or whatever. And I'll catch you later with another video soon. Bye!